Europe after the war. After World War II, the U.S. and the Soviet Union emerged as the top world powers. This caused tension and rivalry between them, which would result in some division in Europe's powers and governments. One place of tension was in Germany, where Britain, France, U.S., and the Soviet Union each had control over different occupation zones. The Soviet Union was communist, while the others were democratic. The democratic zones worked together to form West Germany, while the Soviets formed East Germany. The war left many nations in Europe poor and with a weak government, and some of these nations quickly became communist under the Soviet Union. These nations were referred to as satellites. President Harry Truman of the U.S. enacted two policies to stop this communist spread in Europe. These were the containment policy and the Marshall Plan. Both involved giving money and assistance to these nations to prevent them from giving into communist rule. These plans helped many European countries get back on their feet. Back in Germany, conflict arose between East and West Germany over control of Berlin. Each owned part of it. East Berlin decides to block the U.S. and Britain from having access to their part of Berlin in hopes of starving it into submission. President Truman orders supplies to be delivered by air to Berlin over the Soviet blockade. After a month, the blockade is removed. France at this time was being led by Charles de Gaulle, who worked with the government of West Germany to create an organization known as the European Economic Community, or the EC. Many nations of Europe joined, and as a result, their economies were strengthened, and so was the unity of the European continent. The Soviet Union itself had a very harsh, strict regime that came into place in 1964. They used force to ensure the loyalty of their citizens and to keep their satellites in line. Working conditions and the way of life in East Germany were much disliked by the residents there. Those in East Germany would try to escape West Germany so much that a wall was put in between the two by the communist government. The situation in Hungary was poor as well. Protests by the people had led some government reform, but it wasn't long-lasting. The Soviet Union brought in tanks and troops and re-established Soviet control. The Soviet Union used their military again in Czechoslovakia and Poland to maintain control. Poland fought hardest, so it was put under the direct control of the military. This caused even more economic decline.